CNN presents Price of Life, Sunday night, 8 Eastern.
Now spreading anger over the killing of an unarmed teenager by a neighborhood watch captain in Florida. A protest is set to begin in New York City at the top of the hour. The NAACP is calling for the Sanford, Florida police chief to resign because the shooter has not yet been arrested. CNN's John Zarrella is in Sanford. He's joining us right now. There's new information, John, about why the shooter in this particular case, George Zimmerman, hasn't been charged. What are you learning?
That's exactly right, Wolf. And what we're learning is that on the city's website today, the police chief answered questions put to him by the city manager, questions that the city manager said were being commonly asked by the people. Amongst them, why wasn't George Zimmerman arrested? And the police chief responded that under Florida law, the officers were prevented from arresting Zimmerman because he claimed self-defense. Well, on what grounds did Zimmerman claim self-defense? Well, we're learning in this letter, in this report, this question and answer, the police chief wrote that, quote, Zimmerman's statement was that he lost sight of Trayvon and was returning to his truck to meet the police officer when he says he was attacked by Trayvon. Of course, that was after he placed the phone call to 911 that there was this young man in the neighborhood and that he was following Trayvon. Now, on his show, Anderson Cooper today spoke with two women who live in the neighborhood who witnessed what happened, and he also spoke with Trayvon's parents.
When you both went outside, you saw George Zimmerman in where, and where was Trayvon Martin?
She was out the door first. When I came out the door, I saw him basically straddling him. He had, feet on either side of his body, and his hands, at the time I didn't know, was on his back. And
Trayvon was face down.
Trayvon was face down. Once he got off of the body, we could see that his face was down in the grass. So at the time that he was holding his back, I didn't know if he was trying to help him hold the wound or Selma had asked him several times, 3 times, what's going on? Is everything okay? And each time he looked back, but he didn't say anything until the 3rd time he just said, just call the police.
The eyewitnesses have said they believe, some of them believe it was your son calling out for help. No one saw him directly doing it or could say 100% for sure. You've heard the 911 call where you hear somebody calling out help. Do you believe that is your son's voice?
Yes, I do. I believe that's Trayvon Martin. That's my baby's voice. Every mother knows their child, and that's his voice.
And the fact that if that's true and he called out for help, what does that tell you?
He was afraid for his life. He saw his death coming. He saw his death coming. The screams got more franticer, and at that second that we heard the shot, the screams just completely stopped. He saw his death. He was pleading for his life.
So you're saying if it was Zimmerman who was screaming for help, that might have continued after the shot, but the fact that after the shot, there was no more scream for help.
No more screaming whatsoever. It went completely silent.
Now, behind me here at City Hall, a special meeting going on at the City Council. They are discussing moving next week's regularly scheduled City Council meeting to the Convention Center, which seats 600 people, because they expect they will have a huge crowd there to hear what's being discussed, to hear what's happening, what the latest is, what's going to be done, and they think they need that larger venue because they expect, Wolf, all 600 seats will be filled. Wolf?
John Zarrella on the scene. We'll stay in close touch with you. I want to dig deeper right now with our legal analyst, the former federal prosecutor, Sonny Hostin. Sonny, you're in New York. You had a chance to meet with Trayvon's parents today. What was your impression?
I felt, Wolf, that they were so strong in the face of this tragedy. In particular, his mother is doing as best she can. She really is just holding on. And what struck me is that both parents told me that they don't want retribution. They're not looking for an eye for an eye. They're just looking for justice. They're looking for an arrest. So a very strong family who I think kudos really goes out to them, because they have had to become their own investigative team in trying to bring this story to us all.
And you also met with two of these eyewitnesses. What was your impression on what they said to you?
You know, I thought that it was remarkable that they are saying the same thing over and over again. And in particular, they felt that they were being sort of misquoted by the police. Mary, in particular, told me, Wolf, that she called the investigators over and over and over again and left a message for the chief investigator in this case, and that her call was not returned. And so she has been very forthcoming and sort of wanting to give her story, wanting to tell the officers what she saw, and she felt that she didn't get much of a response from law enforcement in Florida.
This is what I don't understand, Sonny. You have eyewitnesses, and the Sanford Police Department, they're not questioning them in depth on a case of this magnitude, the life of an individual involved?
It is remarkable, and as a former prosecutor, Wolf, you know, I've handled investigations, and this is just odd that in a shooting death of an unarmed teenager, that leads don't appear to have been followed. My understanding is that the girl that was speaking to Trayvon Martin on the phone for minutes during this altercation has not yet been interviewed by the police. That is what the Martin family attorney told me. I thought that was remarkable. I think it's also remarkable that their attorney told me that George Zimmerman was not tested for drug and alcohol, that he was allowed to leave the police station, Wolf, with the very clothes on that he had that night. So any forensic evidence that may have been on his clothing to help or harm him, in fact, is just not there any longer. So this, in my view, as a former prosecutor, just doesn't seem to have been investigated in the way that a shooting death of an unarmed individual would be investigated. I think what's also remarkable is that the police, as John just mentioned, said that they were prohibited from making an arrest. Well, that just doesn't sound right, because the standard is probable cause. The police would have to make the determination as to whether or not probable cause existed to arrest. So for them to say that they were prohibited by law, I think is pretty disingenuous, especially in the face of all this new evidence that has come forth.
Yeah, it sounds, at least on the surface, that there's no investigation, no serious investigation by the Sanford Police Department. So it's fully understandable why the Justice Department in Washington is now getting involved. Other grand juries are getting involved. I don't understand where the local police have been over these past several days. This case causing outrage not only across the United States, but indeed around the world. Sonny, stay in close touch with us. We're going to stay on top of this story. Appreciate it very much.
Thanks, Wolf.